I need you to pause for a moment and really think, why is it that sometimes, no matter how attractive, successful, or charming you are, a woman still doesn't feel that spark with you? You might have been told sex is the ultimate key, but what if I told you that there's something far more powerful, something science shows triggers desire in a way that sex alone never can? Most men completely overlook this. They think it's about muscles, money, or a flashy lifestyle. They chase physical attraction, believing it will automatically ignite passion. But here's the truth, a truth most men never hear. Women are wired to respond first and foremost to your emotional and psychological presence. It's not about your body, it's about your mind, your energy, and the way you make her feel seen. Think about the last time you felt truly connected to someone. That rush, that tension, that pulse, was it ever just about their body, or was it about how they made you feel alive, understood, and wanted in a way no one else could? That's exactly the same mechanism that turns a woman on, not the physical act itself, but the emotional and mental triggers you create. Science backs this up. Studies in psychology and neuroscience have found that when a woman feels genuinely appreciated, respected, and mentally engaged, her brain releases oxytocin and dopamine, chemicals that not only heighten pleasure, but also create instant attraction. It's why moments of deep connection can feel more intoxicating than sex itself. A casual hookup doesn't touch this. A clever pickup line won't get near it. It's subtle, but it's explosive once understood. Now here's the part most men fail at. This isn't something you fake. Women can smell inauthenticity a mile away. Trying to act deep or pretend you care is the fastest way to kill attraction. The men who succeed are the ones who genuinely cultivate presence, confidence, and an energy that makes a woman feel she's the only person in the room who truly matters. That emotional magnetism, yes, magnetism, is what triggers her desire far more reliably than sex ever could. It's also why timing matters. The wrong move at the wrong moment can destroy tension instantly. Women notice patience, control, and the ability to read the room. They notice when a man holds back, listens carefully, and understands her emotional rhythm. That restraint and awareness signal something primal: power, security, and control. It's the invisible force behind desire, the same force that makes the right man irresistible without ever touching her body. Let's get brutally honest. Women don't fall for men who simply exist. They fall for men who make them feel alive. This is not a cliché. It's a truth buried deep in human psychology, and most men are completely blind to it. If you want to trigger attraction more powerfully than sex ever could, you need to understand the subtle psychological levers that pull her attention and ignite desire. First, there's emotional tension. This is the invisible spark that makes her pulse quicken when you enter a room. You felt it before. You notice it when a conversation lingers just long enough to create curiosity, when a glance holds more than words, or when silence is used strategically. Emotional tension isn't manipulation. It's the art of holding space. It signals confidence, self-possession, and control, qualities that are biologically hardwired to trigger attraction in women. Then, there's vulnerability paired with strength. Women are subconsciously drawn to men who can show depth without weakness, sharing a fleeting personal thought, admitting a small struggle, or expressing a genuine opinion conveys honesty. But this vulnerability must exist alongside clear strength, calm, confidence, decisiveness. The combination creates a paradoxical pull. She wants to comfort you, yet she simultaneously respects and desires your self-sufficiency. That emotional push and pull, that's more powerful than any physical touch. Another trigger is attention to her mind, not just her body. Compliments focused solely on appearance are forgettable. They fade in seconds. But when you notice how she thinks, how she reasons, or how she solves a problem, you tap into a higher level of desire. You're telling her without words, "I see you, not just your body." This activates neurological reward pathways in her brain that are far more intense than visual stimulation. She begins to crave your presence because your attention makes her feel exceptional, unique, and understood in ways no one else does. Lastly, understand the power of anticipation. Desire thrives in gaps, in pauses, in mystery. Women experience heightened excitement when the mind imagines possibilities. If you reveal everything at once, your thoughts, intentions, or emotions, there's nothing left to fuel her imagination. The mind craves curiosity. Learn to create moments where she's left wanting, wondering, and imagining. This is the secret weapon men overlook, a slow, deliberate unveiling of your energy, presence, and attention. Here's the hard truth most men refuse to hear. You can have the perfect body, the perfect job, the perfect lifestyle, but if you fail at these psychological triggers, desire will not ignite. Physical intimacy alone cannot substitute for the deep emotional and mental connection that makes a woman truly want you. Sex becomes the reward, not the spark. Mastering these triggers is not about gimmicks, manipulation, or cheap tricks. It's about self-awareness, presence, and energy. It's about cultivating a version of yourself that women cannot resist because you operate on a level they instinctively recognize as rare, compelling, and alive. Now let's dive into what most men never realize. Desire is not just what you say or do. It's the energy you radiate without trying. Women are exquisitely tuned to subtle cues, and these invisible signals create attraction far more than any physical interaction ever could. You could be in the same room as her, and in an instant, she knows whether you're worth her attention or whether she'll walk away bored. The first invisible force is confidence without arrogance. This is not about bragging or showing off. It's a quiet, steady assurance in who you are. Women respond to men who stand grounded in themselves, who don't seek validation from their reactions. Confidence acts like gravity. It pulls her in, even when she's pretending she's not interested. And here's the kicker. The more grounded your presence, the more tension builds, the more she subconsciously craves your approval, energy, and attention. Next is emotional unpredictability, but in small, controlled doses. This doesn't mean mood swings or games. It's the subtle fluctuations in how you respond, in your tone, in the energy you project. A thoughtful pause before you speak, a smile that's fleeting but meaningful, or a glance that lingers just long enough. These micro variations trigger curiosity and intrigue. Women are wired to notice these small inconsistencies, and the mind starts creating stories around you, building attraction before any touch ever occurs. Another powerful element is purpose and mission. Women are drawn to men who live beyond themselves. When you have a life that's bigger than a relationship, goals, passions, challenges, it signals strength, independence, and vision. It's magnetic. Even in subtle conversation, when she senses that your time, energy, and focus are directed towards something meaningful, desire intensifies. You become someone worth pursuing, not someone she can take for granted. Then there's the art of mirroring and resonance. Subconsciously, women respond to men who reflect their emotional state, but not perfectly. Too much mirroring feels like imitation. Too little feels disconnected. When you match her energy just enough to create alignment, while still maintaining your own presence, it produces a resonance that feels almost addictive. Her mind equates your presence with safety, intrigue, and excitement all at once. That combination is far more potent than sexual advances. Finally, understand the power of absence. Women instinctively respond to scarcity, to moments where your energy isn't fully available. Overexposure kills desire. Step back, create space, and let her imagination fill the gaps. This isn't manipulation. It's strategy grounded in human psychology. Desire grows in the spaces between contact, in anticipation, and in the tension of uncertainty. Here's the reality most men never grasp. Attraction begins long before sex and often survives long after it. It's about presence, energy, and mastery over subtle psychological triggers. Sex alone can never replicate the intensity of anticipation, the pull of curiosity, or the thrill of being deeply seen and understood. Master these invisible forces, and women will not only desire you, they'll chase your energy, crave your presence, and remember your impact long after you leave the room. By now, you should begin to understand the truth that most men never learn. Sex is not the ultimate key to attraction. Desire begins in the mind, and it lives in the subtle currents of energy, attention, and presence. What turns a woman on more than sex is not your body. It's your ability to make her feel alive, seen, and mentally engaged in a way that no one else can. Here's the reality. Women are drawn to men who operate on a higher level of emotional awareness. They notice how you handle tension, how you respond to challenges, how you carry yourself when the spotlight isn't on you. These traits communicate power, stability, and depth, qualities that create long-lasting desire. A man who understands this does not chase her physically. He moves with purpose, observes with curiosity, and responds with measured intensity. That is the invisible seduction that sex alone cannot create. Another truth: attraction thrives on anticipation and restraint. When you hold back just enough to make her think, wonder, and imagine, you create mental loops that keep her coming back. Every interaction becomes charged with potential, every glance loaded with meaning, every word deliberate. Desire is amplified when a woman senses that you are self-possessed, selective, and intentional in how you share your time and energy. This is not manipulation. It is mastery over your own presence, and it triggers a deep subconscious craving that sex cannot satisfy on its own. Understand also the power of emotional resonance. When you genuinely reflect her state of mind without losing yourself, when you show empathy and insight into her thoughts and feelings, her brain releases dopamine and oxytocin in ways that intensify attraction. She begins to associate your presence with excitement, comfort, and validation, an intoxicating mix that surpasses physical pleasure. This is the psychological currency that turns women on more than sex ever could. So how do you become this man? Start by cultivating presence, energy, and self-awareness in every interaction. Pay attention to the subtle signals she gives. Notice how she responds to your voice, your gaze, your pauses, and your energy. Understand that less is more. Every restrained gesture, every thoughtful word, every controlled display of confidence becomes a trigger for desire. Master the art of anticipation, emotional resonance, and subtle tension. Here's your personal challenge. Reflect on your last meaningful interaction with a woman and ask yourself, did I make her feel seen, understood, and alive, or did I rely solely on physical attraction? The equation is simple yet life-changing. Presence plus emotional resonance plus anticipation, desire beyond sex. If this resonates with you, I want you to do something now. Comment below with your answer to that equation. How are you creating desire beyond sex in your interactions? Like this video if it opened your eyes, subscribe for more insights that transform your dating life, and share this with a friend who desperately needs to hear this truth. Because the men who understand this, who master these invisible forces, are the men women cannot resist.